The legend and his nanny, Michael Jordan's heartwarming hometown discovery. Welcome to Fame Finder, where we bring you the most touching stories of celebrities making real differences in people's lives. Today's story will warm your heart and remind you why Michael Jordan isn't just a basketball legend, but a man of extraordinary character. Don't forget to subscribe to Fame Finder for more exclusive content like this. When basketball legend Michael Jordan visited his hometown for a charity event, he never expected to find his childhood nanny still working as a waitress at age 85. The woman who once bandaged his scraped knees and believed in his dreams was now serving burgers with arthritic hands, struggling to make ends meet. Shocked and moved by his circumstances, Michael hatched a secret plan that would transform both their lives forever. What began as a chance encounter became an extraordinary journey of gratitude, revealing a surprising connection between them that spanned half a century. An unexpected reunion. Michael Jordan's sleek black luxury car pulled up to the curb in downtown Wilmington, North Carolina. The famous basketball icon was back in his hometown for the first time in years, there to lead a charity basketball camp for underprivileged children who couldn't afford professional training. "Thanks for the ride," Michael told his driver, adjusting his baseball cap. "I'll call when I'm ready to head back to the hotel." It was nearly 8 o'clock in the evening, and Michael's stomach growled after a full day of teaching basketball fundamentals to excited children. The upscale restaurant where he had planned to dine was closed for a private event, forcing him to find an alternative. Despite being 62 years old, Michael still moved with a natural grace that had made him a legend on the basketball court. Most passers-by didn't recognize the tall figure with his cap pulled low and his collar turned up, which suited Michael just fine. Sometimes it was refreshing to be just another person walking the streets of his childhood hometown. The tantalizing aroma of home-cooked comfort food caught his attention. Across the street stood a modest diner called Betty's Place. Through the windows, Michael could see it wasn't crowded. His hunger made a decision for him. A small bell jingled as Michael pushed open the door. The diner was clean but clearly showing its age. Red vinyl booths lined the walls, a few regulars sat at the counter, and country music played softly from an old jukebox in the corner. The atmosphere transported Michael back to simpler times. "Sit anywhere you'd like, honey," called a waitress without looking up as she refilled coffee cups down the counter. Michael chose a booth in the far corner and picked up the laminated plastic menu. The prices were remarkably inexpensive compared to the high-end restaurants he normally frequented. He decided on classic comfort food from his childhood, a cheeseburger, fries, and a chocolate milkshake. While waiting for service, Michael checked his phone. 15 messages from his business manager and 37 emails had accumulated throughout the day. They could all wait until tomorrow. This was his time to reconnect with his roots. "Ready to order, sir?" asked a tired but unmistakably kind voice. Michael looked up and froze. Standing beside his table was an elderly woman in a faded pink waitress uniform. Her snow-white hair was pulled back in a neat bun, and deep wrinkles lined her face, evidence of a lifetime of smiles and worries. But it was her warm brown eyes Michael remembered from his earliest childhood memories, that made his heart skip a beat. "Miss Evelyn?" Michael asked in disbelief, barely above a whisper. The old woman's eyes widened as she looked more closely at her customer. Recognition slowly dawned on her face. "Little Michael?" "Michael Jordan." Her hand went to her mouth in shock. "Is that really you?" Michael stood up, towering over the tiny woman who once seemed so tall to him when he was a child. "Miss Evelyn Maynard, I can't believe it's you." Without thinking, Michael wrapped the elderly woman in a gentle hug. She felt so small and fragile in his arms, nothing like the strong woman who had once chased him around the yard and tucked him into bed each night. "My goodness," Evelyn said, stepping back to look up at him with wonder in her eyes. "The last time I saw you, you were missing your front teeth and couldn't tie your shoes without help." Michael laughed warmly, the years between them melting away. "And now I'm old enough for gray hair and reading glasses." "You're still just a baby compared to me," Evelyn said with a bright smile that took years off her face. "I hit 85 last month." Michael's smile faded as reality set in. "Miss Evelyn, what are you doing working here? At your age, you should be enjoying retirement." Evelyn straightened her pink uniform with dignity. "Bills don't pay themselves, Michael. Not all of us made millions throwing balls through hoops." Her eyes twinkled to show she was teasing. But the truth behind her words was all too clear. "Order up, Evelyn," called the cook from the kitchen window. "Table 4's food is getting cold." Evelyn sighed. "Duty calls. What can I get you, Michael?" A difficult reality. Still processing the shock of seeing his childhood nanny working as a waitress at her advanced age, Michael ordered his meal. As Evelyn walked away, he noticed how slowly she moved, how she winced slightly when lifting heavy plates. Yet she smiled warmly at every customer, calling them honey or sweetie, just like she used to call him decades ago. While eating his burger, Michael watched Evelyn work. She never stopped moving, refilling coffee, taking orders, carrying plates. Twice she had to sit down for a moment, rubbing her knees before forcing herself back up. When she brought his milkshake, Michael couldn't hold back his questions anymore. "How long have you been working here, Miss Evelyn?" "About 12 years now," she answered, setting down his chocolate shake. "After my husband passed, I needed something to keep me busy and help pay the bills. But before that, after you stopped being my nanny when I was 10. Evelyn laughed softly. "Oh, child, I've worked my whole life. After your family, I was a nanny for the Thompsons, then the Wilsons. Then I cleaned houses for years, worked as a school cafeteria lady after that. I've never stopped working." Michael's heart sank. This woman who had shown him so much love, who had bandaged his scraped knees and read him bedtime stories, was still working at 85 years old, when she should have been enjoying the comfort of retirement. "Miss Evelyn, do you live nearby?" Michael asked. "Pine View Apartments over on Westbrook Street," she replied. "Nothing fancy, but it's home." Michael knew the area, one of the poorest parts of town. As Evelyn turned to help another customer, Michael remembered how she used to slip money into his pocket for ice cream, even though she probably couldn't afford it. He remembered her comforting him after he didn't make the school basketball team, telling him, "God has big plans for you, Michael. Don't you give up." She had been right. God did have big plans for him. And now, watching his former nanny limping between tables with a forced smile, Michael felt something powerful stir inside him. When Evelyn brought his check, Michael asked, "What time do you finish work tonight?" "In about 20 minutes, she replied. "Why?" "I'd like to give you a ride home, if that's okay. We could catch up a bit." Evelyn shook her head. "That's sweet, but I take the bus. Been doing it for years." "Please, Miss Evelyn, for old time's sake." Something in his voice must have touched her, because she finally nodded. "All right, Michael, for old time's sake." Michael paid his bill, leaving a $100 tip that he folded so Evelyn wouldn't see the amount right away. Then he called his driver and waited. 20 minutes later, Evelyn emerged from the back of the diner. She had changed out of her uniform into a simple dress and worn cardigan. She looked even smaller without her waitress outfit. As they walked to his waiting car, Michael knew one thing with absolute certainty. He couldn't let his former nanny, the woman who had helped shape him into the man he became, continue struggling at 85 years old. Something had to be done. What happened next would change both their lives forever. The luxury of memory lane. Michael's driver opened the car door, and Evelyn's eyes widened at the luxury vehicle before her. "My goodness," she whispered, taking in the sleek design and polished exterior. "Things sure have changed from when I used to drive you to school in my old station wagon." Michael smiled and gently helped her into the back seat. As the car pulled away from the curb, he watched Evelyn look around at the soft leather seats and high-tech features with childlike wonder. "Your address?" the driver asked politely. "Pine View Apartments, Building C," Evelyn replied. "On Westbrook Street." Michael knew that neighborhood well enough. It wasn't dangerous, but it wasn't nice either. The buildings were old and run down, with poor heating and leaky roofs. The thought of Evelyn living there made his chest tighten with concern. "How long have you lived there?" Michael asked. "About 15 years now," Evelyn said, looking out the window as the streets of Wilmington passed by. "The rent keeps going up, but it's what I can afford on my Social Security and diner wages." As they drove through the quiet evening streets, Michael found himself lost in memories. The streetlights flashing across Evelyn's face took him back to when he was just a little boy. He remembered his first day with Miss Evelyn. He was only 3 years old, hiding behind his mother's legs as she introduced a kind-faced woman who would watch him while his parents worked. "She's not going to bite you, Michael," his mother had said with a laugh. Evelyn had knelt down to his level, her eyes warm and patient. "I hear you like cookies," she had said, pulling a chocolate chip cookie from her purse. "I think we're going to be good friends." They were more than good friends. For 7 years, Evelyn had been like a second mother to him. Michael glanced at the elderly woman beside him now, looking out the window at the passing streets. Her hands were twisted with arthritis, but he remembered how those same hands had once tied his shoes with patient care. "You taught me to tie my shoes," Michael said suddenly. Evelyn turned and smiled. "You were so frustrated. Threw your sneakers across the room and said you'd just wear Velcro forever." Michael laughed. "But you wouldn't let me give up. You made up that silly rhyme to help me remember the steps." "The bunny hops around the tree, dives into the hole, and comes out to see," they said together, then burst into laughter. "You were always so determined," Evelyn said, patting his hand, "even as a little boy." More memories flooded back. Michael remembered the day he didn't make the elementary school basketball team. He'd come home crying, ready to quit basketball forever. But Evelyn wouldn't hear of it. "God gave you those long legs for a reason, Michael Jordan," she had told him firmly. "Sometimes the best blessings come after the biggest disappointments. You keep practicing." She had spent hours with him in the backyard, rebounding his shots and offering encouragement. She didn't know the first thing about basketball, but she knew about perseverance. Michael remembered the special lunches she packed for him, always with a note saying things like, "You're going to do great things someday," or "I'm proud of you just for trying." He remembered her cheering the loudest at his first successful game. Even though she worked for his family, she wasn't just doing her job. She truly cared. A glimpse into hardship. The car slowed down as they entered a neighborhood with cracked sidewalks and dim streetlights. Some of the buildings had boards on the windows, and trash littered the gutters. "Here we are," Evelyn said cheerfully, as if they were pulling up to a palace instead of a dingy apartment building. "Building C is just there." Michael felt a lump form in his throat. All these years, he had lived in mansions and penthouses while the woman who helped raise him lived here. The contrast was stark and painful. "Let me walk you to your door," Michael said, his voice thick with emotion. Inside the building, the hallway smelled of old cooking and mildew. The elevator had an out-of-order sign, so they climbed the stairs slowly to the 3rd floor. Evelyn had to stop twice to catch her breath. Her apartment door had 3 locks. "Can't be too careful," she explained as she turned the keys. "I don't have much, but what I have, I'd like to keep." Inside, the apartment was tiny but spotlessly clean. Faded floral curtains hung at the windows, and the furniture was old but well cared for. Photos of children and grandchildren covered one wall. "Would you like some tea?" Evelyn offered. "I don't have much else to offer." "Tea would be perfect," Michael said, though what he really wanted was answers. How had he lost touch with this important person from his childhood? Why had he never checked on her before? Now, as Evelyn busied herself in the tiny kitchen, Michael noticed the pill bottles lined up on the counter. He saw the single space heater, the worn carpet, the roof stain in one corner. When Evelyn returned with 2 mugs of tea, Michael had made up his mind. "Miss Evelyn," he said, taking the mug from her shaking hands, "I'd like to come back tomorrow, if that's okay. There's so much more I want to hear about your life." Evelyn looked surprised but pleased. "I'd like that, Michael. My shift starts at 4, but I'm free before that." As he sipped the too-sweet tea, Michael's mind was already racing with plans. The basketball star who had everything was suddenly clear about what he needed to do. Miss Evelyn had given him so much. Now it was his turn to give back. Operation Evelyn's Rest. Michael returned to his hotel that night with his mind racing. He barely slept, thinking about Evelyn working long hours at her age, climbing those stairs to her tiny apartment, counting pennies for medicine. By morning, he knew he needed to learn more about her life before he could help properly. After a quick breakfast, Michael had his driver take him back to Pineview Apartments. He brought fresh bagels and fruit with him. At exactly 10 a.m., he knocked on Evelyn's door. "Michael," Evelyn said, looking surprised to see him so early. She wore a simple blue dress with a white cardigan. Her white hair was neatly combed. "I didn't expect you so soon." "I brought breakfast," Michael said, holding up a bag of food. Evelyn welcomed him inside. The small apartment looked even shabbier in the morning light. A cool draft came from the windows, and Michael noticed Evelyn wore thick socks and a cardigan despite the warm spring day. "The heat doesn't work too well," Evelyn explained when she caught him looking at the socks. "But it's not so bad. I've got my electric blanket for the cold nights." They sat at her small kitchen table, and Evelyn seemed delighted by the fresh berries Michael had brought. As they ate, Michael asked a question that had kept him awake. "Miss Evelyn, tell me about your life after you stopped working for my family." Evelyn's eyes grew distant with memories. "Well, after your family moved when you were 10, I worked for the Thompsons for a few years. Their son Ben was a handful," she chuckled. "Then I met Harold Maine at church. He was a good man, worked at the paper mill. We got married when I was 37. "I've seen pictures of Harold," Michael said, pointing to a faded photo on the wall of a tall, serious-looking man. "We were happy," Evelyn continued, a soft smile playing on her lips. "Had our daughter Tasha a year later. Then our son Marcus came 2 years after that." Her face glowed when she mentioned her children. "But Harold died young, heart attack when he was just 45. The children were only 6 and 4. Her voice faltered slightly. Michael's heart sank. "I'm so sorry. That must have been incredibly hard." Evelyn nodded. "Hardest thing I ever faced. But there were bills to pay and children to raise, so I did what needed doing. Worked as a nanny during the day, cleaned office buildings at night. Sometimes I'd add a weekend shift at the grocery store, too. 3 jobs." Michael asked, amazed by her strength. "Had to do what was needed," Evelyn said simply. "My babies were going to college one day. I was determined." She rose slowly and walked to a shelf, returning with a photo album. "Here they are, my pride and joys." Michael flipped through pages of family photos. He saw Tasha grow from a little girl with pigtails to a beautiful young woman in a graduation cap and gown. Marcus transformed from a skinny boy to a handsome young man in a military uniform. "Both my children went to college, just like I planned," Evelyn said proudly. "Tasha became a teacher. She lives in California now with her husband and 3 children." She pointed to pictures of 3 smiling kids, 2 boys and a girl. "Those are my grandchildren. Jamal is 14, Kenya is 12, and little Devin is 9. "They are beautiful," Michael said sincerely. "Do you see them often?" Evelyn's smile faded. "Not as much as I'd like. California is far, and flights are expensive. They visit maybe once every 2 years. I've only been out there twice myself." She turned the page to show more photos of her son. "My Marcus joined the Army after college. He served 3 tours overseas." Her voice caught. "We lost him 10 years ago. His helicopter crashed during a sandstorm." Michael reached out and squeezed her hand. "I'm so sorry for your loss, Miss Evelyn." Evelyn nodded, wiping a tear. "He was a good boy, so brave." She pointed to a small display on a side table that held military medals in a shadow box. "They gave me these after the funeral, said he was a hero." Michael stood to look at the medals, feeling a deep sadness. All this time, Evelyn had faced such hardships while he lived a life of fame and fortune. After Marcus died, Evelyn continued, "I threw myself into work even more, needed to keep busy. You know, I was a home health aide for many years. Then when my arthritis got too bad for that, I started at the diner. Been there 12 years now." "And you're still working at 85, Michael said, unable to keep the concern from his voice. Evelyn shrugged. "Bills don't pay themselves, Mr. Jordan." It was the second time she'd said that phrase. Social Security helps, but it barely covers rent and utilities. The medicines I take for my heart and arthritis aren't cheap, even with Medicare. "What about retirement?" Michael asked gently. Evelyn laughed, but there was little humor in it. "Retirement is for people who had good jobs with benefits. Michael, people like me, we work until we can't anymore. Then we hope our families can take us in, or we find a state home that's not too terrible. The matter-of-fact way she stated this broke Michael's heart. This woman, who had given so much love and care to others her whole life, was facing such an uncertain future. What about your dreams, Miss Evelyn? What would you do if you didn't have to worry about money? Evelyn looked surprised at the question, as if no one had ever asked her that before. Well, she said hesitantly, I always wanted a little house with a garden. Nothing fancy, just something that's mine, not a landlord's. Somewhere my grandchildren could visit and have their own room. She smiled shyly. I'd grow tomatoes and flowers, and maybe volunteer more at the children's hospital. I read to the sick kids there on my day off each week. Those little ones need someone to brighten their day. Michael nodded, making mental notes. Even with everything you've been through, you still give your time to others. Giving makes life worth living, Evelyn said simply. I may not have much, but I've got time and love to share. Michael glanced at his watch. I should let you rest before your shift, but I'd like to come back again, if that's okay. Anytime, Evelyn said, walking him to the door. But don't you have important basketball business to attend to? I don't want to waste your time. Michael turned to her at the door. Miss Evelyn, spending time with you could never be a waste. In fact, I'm working on a special project while I'm in town. I can't talk about it yet, but it's important. A secret project. Evelyn's eyes twinkled with curiosity. Sounds mysterious. Michael smiled. It is, but I think it's going to be something special. As he walked down the hall, Michael pulled out his phone and dialed a number. Derek, it's Michael. I need your help with something important. How quickly can you get to Wilmington? Operation Evelyn's Rest was about to begin. The plan takes shape. Michael paced back and forth in his hotel suite, waiting for Derek Wilkins to arrive. Derek had been Michael's financial advisor and close friend for over 20 years. If anyone could help make this plan work, it was Derek. A knock at the door made Michael hurry to answer it. Derek stood there, a tall man with salt and pepper hair and glasses, carrying a leather briefcase. This better be important, Derek said with a smile as they shook hands. I was in the middle of my vacation in Florida when you called. Trust me, it is, Michael replied, leading him into the suite. I need your help with something that means a lot to me. For the next hour, Michael told Derek about finding Evelyn at the diner and everything he had learned about her life. Derek listened carefully, taking notes. So this woman basically helped raise you, and now she's 85 years old and still waiting tables to survive. Derek shook his head. That's rough, Mike. I want to help her, Michael said firmly, but I don't want to just hand her money. She's too proud for that. I need something more meaningful. What exactly did you have in mind? Derek asked, opening his laptop. Michael sat forward, his eyes bright with purpose. I want to buy her a house, something small but nice, with a garden like she's always wanted. I want to make sure she never has to work again or worry about money. And I want to help her reconnect with her family. Derek typed as Michael spoke. So we're talking about a property purchase, a trust fund, and family reunion expenses. Anything else? Michael thought for a moment. She mentioned having medical expenses. I'd like to cover those and set up good health insurance for her. And she has grandkids who will need college funds eventually. Derek let out a low whistle. You're not doing this halfway, are you? She didn't do halfway when she was taking care of me, Michael replied simply. Derek nodded, understanding in his eyes. All right, let's make a plan. We need to be careful how we approach this. If we just show up with a check, she might feel like it's charity and refuse. Exactly, Michael agreed. That's why I'm calling this Operation Evelyn's Rest. We need to be strategic about how we help her. Derek typed more notes. First, we should set up a trust fund that can provide her with monthly income. We could make it seem like she's won some kind of special lottery or award. She deserves an award, that's for sure, Michael said. For the house, we'll need a real estate agent who can be discreet, Derek continued. Someone who won't spread gossip about why Michael Jordan is buying a small house in Wilmington. I know just a person, Michael said. Lisa Townsend. She helped me sell my parents' old house years ago. She's trustworthy. As they continued planning, Michael's phone rang. It was a charity basketball camp director, wondering why Michael had extended his stay in Wilmington. Michael gave a vague answer about personal business and promised to make an appearance at the closing ceremony. The press is going to start asking questions if you stay in town too long, Derek warned after Michael hung up. Let them ask, Michael said. This is more important than worrying about gossip. Derek looked at his friend with new respect. The Michael Jordan he knew cared deeply about his public image and privacy. This project must really matter to him. There's one more person we need to contact, Michael said, picking up his phone again. Evelyn's daughter, Tasha. If we're going to make this work, we need her help. Finding Tasha wasn't difficult. A quick internet search for Tasha Maynard and California teacher led them to her school's website. Michael called the school and left a message asking Tasha to call him back. He wasn't sure if she would believe it was really him. To their surprise, Tasha called back within an hour. Is this really Michael Jordan? She asked suspiciously. Yes, it is, Michael replied. I'm calling about your mother, Evelyn. Is she okay? Tasha asked quickly, worry in her voice. She's fine, Michael assured her. I just reconnected with her here in Wilmington. She was my nanny when I was a child. Wait, you're that Michael Jordan she used to talk about? The little boy she took care of before she met my dad. Tasha sounded amazed. Mom used to tell us stories about you, but I never made a connection to the famous basketball player. Michael smiled. That's me. Listen, Tasha, I saw your mom working at a diner yesterday. She's 85 years old and still on her feet all day. There was a pause on the phone. When Tasha spoke again, her voice was sad. I know. I've tried to get her to move out here with us, but she refuses, says she doesn't want to be a burden. She's always been stubborn that way. That's actually why I'm calling, Michael said. I want to help your mom. She did so much for me when I was young, and now I want to make her retirement years comfortable. Michael explained his plan to Tasha. At first, she seemed suspicious, like she couldn't believe a famous person would do this for her mother. But as Michael continued, her tone changed. You would really do all this for Mom? She asked, her voice thick with emotion. I'd be honored to, Michael replied sincerely, but I'll need your help to make it work. By the end of the call, Tasha was fully on board with Operation Evelyn's Rest. She agreed to secretly visit Wilmington the following week with her family. She also promised to help gather some of Evelyn's cherished possessions from her apartment when the time came to move them to the new house. Mom talks about you sometimes. You know, Tasha said before hanging up. She always said you were special. Now I see what she meant. After the call ended, Michael turned to Derek. We've got a lot of work to do in a short time. Derek was already making more notes. I'll start setting up the trust fund today. You should call Lisa about finding that house. For the rest of the day, Michael and Derek worked on their plan. They created lists, made calls, and set up meetings. Michael even drew a rough sketch of what he thought Evelyn's perfect home might look like, based on things she had mentioned. That evening, Michael visited Evelyn at the diner again. He sat at the same booth and watched her work. Despite her age and obvious pain, she treated each customer with kindness and patience. Several times she stopped to chat with regular customers, asking about their families or jobs. When she came to take his order, Michael couldn't help but smile. What are you grinning about? Evelyn asked, pencil poised over her order pad. Just thinking about something good, Michael replied. Well, don't keep it to yourself, Evelyn said. This world needs more good things. Michael's smile grew wider. Sometimes the best surprises take time to prepare, but I think this one will be worth waiting for. Evelyn gave him a curious look, but didn't press further. As she walked away to put in his order, Michael watched her with determination in his eyes. The secret project had officially begun, and nothing would stop him from giving Miss Evelyn the retirement she deserved. Here at Fame Finder, we love sharing these heartwarming stories of celebrities who use their success to make real differences in people's lives. This story reminds us that behind the fame and fortune, Michael Jordan remains a man of exceptional character and gratitude. Miss Evelyn's impact on his childhood clearly shaped him in profound ways, and his desire to give back demonstrates the power of honoring those who believed in us before anyone else did. If this story touched your heart, please don't forget to subscribe to Fame Finder for more exclusive content that shows the human side of fame. Like this video to help us share more stories like this one, and comment below with your thoughts on Michael Jordan's incredible gesture of gratitude. What other celebrity act of kindness would you like to see featured on our channel? Remember, sometimes the most meaningful way to honor our past is by changing someone's future.